like, if someone tells, like, have you ever had somebody tell you, like, you can't make it as a writer? And then how would you go? I'm sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. And if somebody would want to be a writer, what advice would you have for them?
The entire world is set up to tell you you can't be a writer. Okay, so,
Okay.
and by that I mean, I'm quite sure that many of you, in one form or another, have received this message that the main reason that you're here at St. Thomas is so you can leave St. Thomas and go get a good job, right? And the thing is if you happen to be, if your passion happens to be writing really beautiful short stories or essays or poems, nobody's going to give you a job to do that. And so what you have to do is you have to take very seriously, as if this creative writing stuff is your job, is your main job. You have to do that with the same amount of dedication and passion and discipline and determination as you would do any work that somebody's paying you for. And somebody, you know, and what happens in our culture is what we get paid for is what so many of us consider legitimate. People will say, you know, for years and years and years, I was a waitress, and I would endure conversations that basically went like this. Where are you working? Oh, I'm waiting tables at Dot's Cafe. But I'm really, I'm a writer. That's the real work I do, is I'm a writer. Oh, really? Have you published any books? Well, not yet. No, I'm working on a novel. Oh, that one you told me about 4 years ago? Yeah, I'm still working on it. I think it's going to be done this year. Well, you know, and there's this, and on it goes, and what happens is inside yourself you're just like, you know, I mean, it's a very unnerving situation. I mean, I know all the writers in the room have had the same conversation. And we have it in ways large and small all along until you finally do publish a book, and then you do publish a book, and then even then it's not what you thought it was going to be, because most of the time that book you published nobody's ever heard of. They'll say, well, have I heard of your book? And I'm always like, well, I don't know. Do you read? Because probably you haven't heard of my book, you know. And so it can be a very humiliating process. And so what you need to do is remember always, with great ferocity, is that no artist ever received permission to be an artist. Okay, so nobody's going to give you permission to write your lovely book of poems. You have to give yourself permission. And you have to do the work too. You absolutely have to consider that your job, even if you have another job. And you have to sometimes take risks. You know, I took a lot of financial risks, you know, to do the work I did. I finished graduate school. I went to graduate school so I could write Torch, essentially. I applied to schools that, I went to Syracuse University. They accept 6 people, and they fund your whole way. They don't charge you tuition, and they paid me $1,500 a month. It was the first time in my adult life I had health insurance. I went there when I was 30, and I went there so I could write Torch. And I wrote the first half of Torch there, and then I graduated, and I had to write the second half of Torch. And my husband is a documentary filmmaker, also a self-employed artist. And we, you know, we're broke, and we decided together to just basically roll the dice. And we decided that we would essentially, instead of me getting a job, I would just keep writing Torch, and we would use our credit cards a lot, and we did. And I sold Torch, and the payment I got for Torch, I paid off the credit card that I had accrued to write it. And so a lot of people, a lot of really reasonable people who, like, you know, maybe are accountants, or, you know, like, they would say, this is a really bad idea. And the thing is actually, in one light, it is a bad idea, because there was a great chance that I wouldn't have sold my book, a great chance. Or if I did, a great chance that I wouldn't have sold it for the amount I needed to pay off my credit card debt. On the other hand, if I never took that risk, if I had gotten that job and was trying to write on the side and all of that stuff, maybe I would have never finished Torch. And so, you know, it's hard to look back and wonder about that. But I do want to say, you know, to be a writer, you do have to be willing to live with some uncertainty, some risk. It's the one thing that you absolutely don't know how it's going to turn out. And even before Wild came out, you know, like, now Wild is this big hit and everything, but nobody could have guessed that beforehand. And whenever anyone tries to guess that, they're wrong. You know, there are a lot of books that they thought were going to be bestsellers and weren't. So you just have to be able to embrace that uncertainty. Writing is not a field for those who really want a lot of financial security. I don't think maybe the other writers can. Or my other advice is like marry a surgeon or something. I mean, you know, I think that can be helpful too. Marrying someone who actually has some money. What else?